Ladies and gentlemen, we're back again with another YouTube video. So a bit of a different type of video today. I'm going to be talking about and reviewing a horror game I recently played. Now if you guys want more videos like this, let me know in the comments, since I really do like talking about gaming stuff, especially gaming controversies. One of my most popular videos on this YouTube channel is literally talking about a Fallout mod, so just let me know. Now that being said, the game we're going to be talking about and reviewing today is a game called Zoochosis. Now this game is made by Clapperheads, who are mostly known for another game called Sparky Marky, which is just a game to capitalize on the whole horror mascot genre. So needless to say, I was a little skeptical of this game coming out, but after seeing the gameplay trailer and stuff, I was pretty excited. Essentially the plot of the game is you're going to be playing as a zookeeper who's staying overnight at an obvious zoo, and during this time you're going to be feeding and caring for the animals, but there is a very dark twist. These animals actually mutate into these disgusting creatures, and that's the first thing I'm going to give this game props, is the creatures are really cool looking. Whoever designed these creatures obviously did a really good job. Now that being said, that's all I can really say in terms of positivity with this game, because everything else is just extremely disappointed. I'm not going to say this is a bad horror game. I mean, you can't really call it a horror game either because it's not really scary, but it's just very disappointing, especially since there was so much hype. Now, I understand with videos like this and games like this, it is an indie studio. Like, they're not very big. I don't expect, like, super high quality, but I expect something better than this, especially when Fears of Fathom and other really good horror games are mostly indie games, right? So it's a little disappointing. Now, like I said, the whole plot line is you're a zookeeper who takes care of these animals, and you go from place to place in your little tram, which is mostly going to be the place you're going to be, where you have all your chemicals, your weapons, your computer to make the different vaccines. You know, you have that, and you're going to use it to go from different places to different places, like the enclosures. Now, you do also have a main hub area, which is where you're going to pick up your food, and that's where most of the story happens. If the story's going to move on, that's usually the place to go, and that's where most of the story beats do happen. Now that being said, this video is going to contain spoilers. Now I understand this game just came out, but I'm assuming a lot of you who are watching this have already seen it and share with my frustration. So I'm going to start from the top. The very beginning of the game immediately makes me feel super detached. It essentially starts with you eyeing up an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement. Now, obviously, a lot of you guys who know about NDAs know how bullshit this intro is. There's literally a section in the NDA that says that you cannot pursue any legal matters and you can't go to the cops without talking to the company first, and this is just a bunch of BS. Now I understand this is a horror game and they're trying to make it seem like you're helpless, like you can't go to the cops or you can't break your silence about this, but it's just a really cheap way to do this. It makes me just feel super detached from the universe and like our character is kind of an idiot. Now I understand our character is super desperate during this point. We later find out that he's heavily in debt and he's kind of taking whatever job gets thrown at him, since he does have a wife and kid that haven't eaten a normal meal in a long ass time. So it does make sense that he's a little desperate, but the fact that he's eyeing up this NDA and signs it and says, you know what, yeah, this seems fine, this seems not sketchy whatsoever, and then he immediately gets drugged by the main villain, whose name is, I believe his name is Doc, and he's essentially the bad guy, and he drugs you and you just pass out, and then you wake up and he's like, it's time to get to work, and your character's like, what'd you do to me? He's like, oh, don't worry about it, I just gave you a vaccine that just happens to make you pass out. It just is such a weird intro, and I feel like a game like this, where you have something as normal as a zoo, you should kind of slowly creep up on the horror, make it a little bit more, you're getting to it, you're getting to the more intense stuff. Like, they try to add aspects of like, oh, is something sketchier happening here? But by at that point, you already know you're fully in the sketch, right? Now, again, your character is just like, okay, fine, I'm with it, whatever. And then you start getting shown the tutorial, which is the main, game loop. Essentially, you're going to go on this tram that I've already explained, and you're going to go to like 4 separate enclosures where you go and take care of the animals, which basically is you feed them, right? You feed them their food, you then pick up their poop, you then draw their blood, you take their temperature, you take their audio samples or whatever, and then you go see what's wrong with them in the tram. Now, at this point, you can make a cure for them and go try to cure them, but this is where the horror element takes place, if you really want to call it that, is usually, and I do say usually, this does happen every single time, when you go back to the enclosure to start healing the animals, one of them mutates into the creature and starts going haywire. It starts running around, starts freaking out, starts yelling, and it's your job to either cure this creature or to kill it. Now, you obviously get a better ending if you cure it, But curing it does take a lot more effort, where you have to get blood samples and you have to do the story in kind of a specific order to even get the whole like recipe to cure these creatures. But most people just straight up kill it and try to save the other creatures, and then you just move on to the next area, and that's essentially the loop. Is you go check out what's going on with the animals, you give them their shots, whatever, you kill the creature, you move on. That's essentially what it is, and as you progress throughout your jobs, basically, the story will progress. Now, the first big story hit is when you find out that the meat that you've been using or haven't been using, depending on how you're playing the game, is actually human meat. Now, this comes into a big surprise to our character because you do have an option to give your wife a slab of this meat. It literally makes no sense. You're brand new to the job, you're wearing a body cam, and you decide to just randomly give your wife, who's waiting for you outside, a slab of mystery zoo meat. It makes no sense. Now, the game tries to justify this by saying that, oh, your wife and kid haven't eaten like a straight meal in a long-ass time. But that just, from a standpoint, just makes no sense. Again, this is just one of those situations where you're just like, your character's a dumbass. Your character's just straight up an idiot and should not be a zookeeper because what is he doing? Right? It makes zero sense. But besides that, you go back to the little meat place or whatever, and you start finding out that there's bodies, and they start rolling in, and one of these girls' name is Sarah. Now, you do have a pretty big option here that will change the endings. You either kill Sarah and grind her up in the meat, or you rescue her and put her on the couch. Now, if you go heal another creature or deal your thing, you come back to the hub and you find out that she's conscious and she's trying to break down one of the doors. Now, instantly you realize that this is kind of weird because she's trying to break down a door that isn't even an exit. It's like she's trying to get something. Now, you find out she's actually a journalist that was looking into this zoo for their mistreatment of the animals and stuff like that. And you can either work with her or just keep doing your duties. And if you work with her, you later find out that this is like a giant masquerade, and they're actually housing a thing called the Mother, which creates these little creatures, these little like things that infect the creatures and turn them into monsters. And you start slowly putting the pieces back together. Now, in terms of the story, this part's kind of lame. I expected more from a story like this, to go more in depth than just evil guys are doing evil things with these parasites. But the big gotcha moment is you find out you're actually infected with one of these parasites, and you actually don't have much longer to live. So your character has a bit of incentive to try to find a cure or find a way to survive the night. But that comes secondhand to your character just being like, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing my job. So instead of him taking the time to actually try to find a cure or fix himself, you're just going to keep doing your regular duties, right? And that's essentially what you do, is you just keep doing your duties, and then based on your decisions, you'll get one of the 23 endings. Now, there's only, I think, like 5 kind of main ones. There's the bad, the good, the neutral, the whatever endings. Like, there's the main ones, and most of the other endings don't really differ that much. There's a little bit of different dialogue, but most of the endings are the same. And this is where the big comedic value comes in place, because a lot of these endings are just so poorly voice acted, and whoever did the mouthing of the characters did a really bad job.
Awful.
Fuck you. Why didn't you mention that you slept with CJ? Is he your source?
How do you know?
Answer.
Well, kind of. I slept with him. He promised information about the parasites. Instead, I got a bag over my head and a syringe with a tranquilizer.
What if I tell you I found a floppy disk in his locker? Would it be easier for you to guess the password?
Oh, shit. Why didn't you say that earlier?
Now, I understand I do have a little bit of knowledge when it comes to game development. Is trying to put a mouth exactly with the words that are being spoken is actually really difficult. That's why a lot of indie games don't even have the character's mouth moving whatsoever when they're talking. But in this game, it's just they're like super exaggerative. Do these like massive like blah blah blah. Like, it reminds me a lot of those mods that you can do for Fallout, where their mouths are like super wide and like really distorted. And you do get that vibe quite a lot, especially mixed with the really poor voice acting. Dialogue is just so soulless, and a lot of the characters don't react the way you think they would with situations. Like, there's one part where you can betray Sarah and stick her with this parasite killing virus that you're going to use to kill the Mother, and you just stab her in the arm and she's like, ah, and then she just goes back to neutral face and then starts freaking out. It makes no sense.
Ah! Fuck! What did you do?
And a lot of the stuff is just really awkward dialogue. Now, I'm getting kind of sidetracked here. Essentially, the whole point of the game just gets lost on me. It wasn't scary. The story is kind of lame. The characters aren't likable. The universe itself is really boring. You know, you expect a game set in a zoo to have a little bit more to look at than just like really dimly lit like back rooms. Now, I get it. don't expect much from this game. But, when you make a game set in a zoo, I especially expect to, like, be in a big open zoo, to be seeing the creatures, to be seeing the enclosures. And yeah, you do see the enclosures, but that's the only thing zoo about this game, is the enclosures and the animals. That's literally it. For the most part, you're going to be on a tram that just takes you from place to place. You don't even get to really see anything. And the homeroom, that's essentially it. And most of the enclosures, like leading up to the enclosures, all look the same. The hallways look the same. You have the same tram set where you have to take your little trolley and go down the same areas. Like, there's really no difference here. And that's kind of boring in a game like this, especially when you have games like that take place in like amusement parks that are just so much more entertaining to look at, like Indigo Park and stuff like that. So it's a little underwhelming, especially if it's trying to break into this kind of poppy playtime style genre or Indigo Park. It kind of falls flat, especially since the main aspect, which is the creatures turning, is kind of lame too. Since if you guys go into this game and go expect to see these creatures turn in front of you, it doesn't happen. Essentially what happens is you go heal the creature, like I said before, like the whole like repetitive nature, and then it'll just be standing in the hallway all mutated, and then it just runs back in the enclosure kind of comically. It makes no sense. It would have been so much better if you're going in to heal the creatures, and then all of a sudden one just starts acting weird and starts just going and turns into this monster. Like, that would have been so much more awesome, and especially since the combat with the creatures is kind of lame. They're kind of just running around, and then they just grab you, you fall down, you throw up, and then you go back to trying to fight it. It's really lame. You're like not scared whatsoever because the creature doesn't even kill you. It just picks you up and then just runs around. It's so lame, especially since that was kind of the whole selling point of this game, is the mutated monsters, and they couldn't even do that right. Dude, it's just such a disappointment because there was a lot of high hopes for this game. And, I understand that one of the developers or one of the lead writers did pass away. That is extremely unfortunate. And, they probably really hoped this game would do well to honor his legacy, to honor, I'm pretty sure he was the one who kind of came up with this whole concept, which, by the way, it's a cool concept. But, geez, did this game fall flat, man. And especially since I believe they're charging like $25 on Steam for it. This game is really not worth $25. I don't think it's a terrible game. I've played worse horror games, but it's definitely one of the most disappointing I've ever played, especially since, the marketing for this game was really hype, showing these big creatures, and especially the gameplay trailer. It looked pretty exciting, and we didn't really get any of that, honestly. But anyways, that's all I really want to talk about. Let me know your comments in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you guys want me to do more videos like this, because I find them really interesting, and I like voicing my opinions on gaming topics. But yeah, before we end the video, if you guys want to join the Discord, the link will be in the description down below. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one.
But there's one I always miss.